Amanda Conway. I'm a careers consultant at the University of Manchester Careers Service, and I've worked with students for over 10 years around making decisions, making choices, but also in the past 4 years I've been working on this kind of strengths model. It's a global model really, and what we're going to talk about today is based on something from an organisation called Capfinity, and they've done this strengths modelling with over 60,000 people around the world. So in a little while I'll also show you what some of the most popular strengths are in the world. So it's nice you can get a little bit of a snapshot of how you compare to other people as well. I'd also like to introduce Anna. Anna is my co-host for today. Anna, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, hello. So as Amanda mentioned, I'm Anna. I also work at Careers, and I have been one of the team that have put together Finalist Fortnight, of which this is one of our sessions. And that kind of campaign is very much geared towards helping you make decisions in a very uncertain time. And having been through Amanda's skills strength session myself, it's actually a really, really positive action to be here and to be going through this session to try and just help you decide how to focus your decisions and how to sort of move forward. So welcome everybody.
Great. So I've got some slides for today, and I'm going to attempt to share those with you now. So let's see how that goes, and we'll work through the slides. But as I say, Anna and I'll stay on camera. I'll stay on camera through the whole session. We're up in the corner, and then when we do the questions towards the end, obviously we'll come back and do the camera as well, and stop sharing the screens. But because it will help us go through the session, we're going to just share some slides with you now. So bear with me, and I will see if I have got, there we go. And yes, so hopefully you can all see that. Anna, give me a nod if we're all right with this. Excellent. Okay, so today's session is all around, as I said, understanding your strengths. And what if your strengths could be the answer to some of your challenges at the moment? What if understanding those strengths could actually help you get a sense of what sort of job to do in the future that you would find energizing, you would find motivating, and you would feel as if probably you haven't really been trying in the day, it actually feels quite natural and a real fit for you. So we hope that with this session today, it can help you unlock some sense of some of the sorts of things to consider for your future direction. I'll say now, it's not going to solve everything for you, but also what it can do, it can give you tips and techniques for how to make those decisions a little bit more easily as well. So Amanda is me, Anna is my co-host today, and she'll be running and managing the chat function. So what are strengths? Let's make a start. When we talk about strengths, what do you think we mean? The model of strengths is a little bit unique, but I'm really interested in what you think. So if you've got a second now, I'd just like you to comment in the chat function what you think strengths are. What does a strength mean?
Sorry to interrupt. I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but the chat function isn't working for me. I can't reply in it.
Thank you, Matt.
It's not working for me as well.
Ah, brilliant. Okay, that's great. Well, let me just see what I can do. That's great. Anna, can you have a little peep at that, or do you think I need to have a look?
Yeah, I'll have a look. I've just sent a message to everyone, but presuming people can't see that, then I'll just have to see why that's not working.
Okay, well, I think what we'll do, we'll carry on, and that's not essential, but what I might do is ask people to comment, and so see how you're feeling with that. We might have a little bit less interactivity, and Anna will let me know if we get the chat going again. But thank you for that. That might be.
Hang on one sec. Let me just try this. I'll try again.
What's our fingers?
Yes, I think we're in.
Are we in?
Yes, we're in.
Brilliant. So glad you're here today, Anna. And thank you, Matthew, as well. Thank you for letting us know, and Maria. Okay, let's try it now then. Let's see. What are your definitions? What do you think when we talk about strengths? What do we mean? What is a strength? So now we've fixed the chat. Let's see what we've got coming through.
Okay, so people are saying things like something you're good at, something that comes naturally to you, something that's natural rather than learnt, intuitive, all those kind of messages coming through.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I think, when we talk about a strength, absolutely right. It might be something like a natural talent, something you're good at, something you're known for, something you've always had. The unique thing about the strengths model with Capfinity is it is about those things, but it's about one key difference, and that's about energy levels. Okay, so when you are performing with this strength, it's like you're not really trying. It's actually quite energizing and you find it quite motivating. So when you're doing this sort of behavior, you almost get a little bit lost in it. It's not like it's something that takes your energy. You actually feel like it's kind of a refresh and a battery recharge. So bear that in mind as we go through today, that the core concept of your strengths is this thing about energy levels. There is a whole movement about strengths-based recruiting, and probably a good 50% of the graduate employers are talking about strengths and using strengths-based recruitment. And their view is that if you are hired into a job that you find energizing, that it uses your strengths, you are more motivated, you are more energized, and therefore you're likely to perform better and it be a better fit for you. So that's kind of the thing that's behind why people are talking about strengths. You know, it's good for the individual, it's also good for organizations. So for you to take this forward today, think about that energy level. Think about what you find motivating, what you find energizing. So let's move through. This concept then, energy levels and motivation, is the differentiator. So you can actually be good at something, you can be very good at it, but if it isn't energizing for you, then it's hard work behaving in that way. So being good at something isn't the only consideration that you should have if you're thinking about satisfaction in your work. So this concept of strengths then can be a new lens with which to look at what you do in your life, how you behave, and think, is it going to be energizing for me? So it can be a new way of when you're exploring different opportunities, different jobs, what's in there, how will I be behaving, and will it be energizing for me? So when we think about our strengths then, we think about three things. We think about performance. Am I going to be good at this? Am I good at this thing? Because if it's something that you're not good at, yes, if you find it really energizing, great, and do it. But you know, if you aren't achieving what you want to achieve and it isn't going so well, that doesn't always feel good for you. So think about how good you are at the strength. It's also about then this concept of energy. And then the third thing we'll think about is the concept of use. Are you doing this thing? Are you behaving in this way during your day, during your job? Are you getting to use your strengths? So we've got three core areas. We've got performance, energy, and use. And what we're going to do today is just try to classify some strengths for you and understand your strength set. So what we're going to do, I'm going to share with you 60 strengths. So Capfinity have got a bank of 60 strengths, and that sounds like a lot, and you're probably thinking, can't think about 60 strengths in the next few minutes. But the really nice thing about that 60 is that a lot of them won't necessarily speak to you. There'll be core ones that really ring home for you and that you can really relate to. But it gives you a language with which to talk about yourself. And I don't know if you feel this. I know I sometimes feel this. If someone says to you, well, what are you good at? You're thinking, I don't know. It's like something you're taken aback. Think, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what you mean. These words, this 60 strengths, is actually a tool for you to use to relate against yourself and to think, actually, of these 60, which ones really relate to me and capture my abilities and my set. So I love it for that, because it is a really nice way to look at yourself and reflect. So we will be looking at the 60. Just to reassure you, what we will do is send you this document with the 60 on, because it's going to be hard to see 60 words on the screen. But we'll have a go. But what we will be doing is sending you, so you can do it properly. It would probably take you a good hour if you wanted to think about all 60 of the strengths. So 30 minutes to 60 minutes is on average the time. So today we're just going to have a little look and a peep. So when we're going to classify our strengths, this is where your paper and pencil comes in. This is the way to think about them. So there's 4 key areas, 4 kind of quadrants, if you like. So our strengths are either, those 60 are either unrealized or realized strengths, or their weaknesses, or their learned behaviors. So you've got 4 core areas with which to classify these strengths. Some of the strengths, they really won't speak to you, that you don't necessarily relate to them particularly, they're not important for you, but there'll be others which are definitely clear learned behaviors, clear weaknesses, or clear strengths. So how does this grid match up? What is this about? You've got on the top half then, with the strengths, the unrealized strengths and the realized strengths, this is where, these are the things that energize you, okay? And you're good at them, okay? But so there's some little explanations underneath. So above the line, the top quadrants are strengths for you. And the key thing then is that they're energizing. You can do them, but you find them motivating. The difference between realized and unrealized, realized strengths, you have them in your life, you're doing them. It's actually some things that you're using at the moment, whether it's in your home life, whether it's in your work, but they're strengths that are being used. You can look back at recent experiences and think, yeah, I'm using those strengths. Unrealized strengths are ones that if you were performing them, if you were behaving in that way, you'd find it energizing, you'd be good at it, but at the moment, you're not using them. So the view about this is that this is your area of untapped potential. These are things that if you were using them in your life, you'd find life more motivating, you'd find potentially a job or an experience more motivating. So that's an area to look and think, should I be doing more of this? So below the line, we've got weaknesses, we've got learned behaviors. Weaknesses, we're not very good at it, okay? We don't find it energizing. And again, it's the energy that's the critical thing. It's not energizing for us. And really, the tip is just to try and avoid having this in your life if you can. And the same with learned behaviors. It's about trying to minimize how much you have of these in your life. But the interesting thing about learned behaviors is that you're actually quite good at these things, but they drain you, okay? So it might be things that are demanded of you. You need to have that behavior in your life. Maybe it's part of your job. It's something particular about your circumstances. You've got to have this in your life. But it's about, again, thinking, oh, there are alternative ways of doing something. So I minimize how much of these is just to capture that image on a piece of paper. I'd like you to divide your paper into 4 areas, very much like this, and just label each of the 4 areas either unrealized strengths, realized strengths, weaknesses, or learned behaviors. Okay. And when you're ready, I think that should be, you don't need to do anything fancy, just scribble that down. Then what we'll do is we'll move on and we'll have a look at the 60. So is everyone okay? Are we ready to move on? Waiting for a show of hands. Anna's giving me the nod. So here we go. This is the 60. As I said, they're small, okay? The descriptors are in there. If you can see them, that's great. If not, maybe just scan through some of the words. And what I'd like you to do as you look through these, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this. is just to try to jot down any of these that you think fit in your particular quadrants. Any that are quite sort of pivotal for you, really. You think, yes, that is a real strength of mine. I find that energizing. I think the interesting thing is we often think about jobs and jobs that would suit us, but we actually don't necessarily think about some of the behaviors within them. And if you have created a sense of what some of your strengths are, you can then compare jobs against some of those strengths, but it can be a nice steer for some of the things to have in your life. So I'll let you scan through them for a second, and then I'll just talk through how, again, you might be able to uncover some of these from your own experiences. So I'll stop speaking for a moment and let you have a little look. So as you look through, you might be thinking, well, I'm not sure, I don't know about some of these things. So it can be about thinking about your previous experiences. So for example, some people say to us, oh, you know, I've worked in a bar while I've been at university, or I've worked in a retail store, but I don't want to do that in the future. But what you can do is start unpicking that. And maybe there are things about that you particularly enjoyed. So for some people working in a bar, no, you maybe don't want to go and do that for your future role, but there might be elements under there. So for example, maybe you feel energized when it's busy. Maybe you like the having to be persistent or persuasive when maybe things aren't going so well, or it's really busy, or you're having to make tricky decisions. So unpicking those times where you actually think, yeah, I did a great job there, or I felt more alive, or something that actually you found that quite motivating. Similarly, if you are working in a shop all day, you might be energized from the customer contact. So that concept on here of connecting, relationship building, rapport building. I know for me, when I think about my strengths, I've done this a few times and still uncovering ones that I hadn't really quite realized before until you reflect on the moments that you actually feel quite energized. For me, it's definitely things like rapport builder, relationship building. For me as well, I think humor is a realized strength of mine. I always like to, Anna's nodding, like to make a joke, like to lighten things and find that a way of connecting with people, but I actually get a lot of kind of sense of energy from that. So it can be about unpicking the roles you've had, your studies, how you study. It can also be, interestingly, I listened to a session from Capfinity about strengths during this time, during COVID-19 and the lockdown. And I think with the lockdown, what's happened is that your regular routine of life is just changed, and you have to start with a new normal and a new way of behaving. And what's happened is people have tended to then draw on their realized strengths, draw on a way of behaving that they feel comfortable, they feel familiar with, and to find that more energizing. So I thought that was really interesting. So maybe have a think about, well, how have I behaved during lockdown? What kind of behaviors have I gone to naturally to kind of re-energize myself? And again, if I share my own experiences, for me, when I look at this 60, the lockdown period, I just went into planning mode. Everything had to have a list. I needed to get a sense of everything. So I was a real planner. The humor came in, optimism. I just had to see a positive way out of everything. But I could see myself naturally kind of energizing myself by drawing on certain behaviors. So hopefully, if you are struggling, you can use some of those previous experiences to help you. One more thing you could do, think about a greatest achievement. So think about a time when you think, yeah, that was brilliant, that went really well. And then unpick again what behaviors were behind there. So we've got our 60, and we've got them on there. What I'd like you to do through the chat, if you have managed to put some things in your boxes, so you won't be capturing the full 60. I'd just like you to jot down particular ones that really speak to you. So for example, if you've got some realized strengths you've identified, just put an R and an S and then a few of the words. Or if you see some real clear weaknesses in there for you, again, just put W and then just put some of those. So it'd be interesting to see, obviously we won't name anybody, but interesting to see what's coming through from everybody today. So if you are somebody who's managed to have a look through, if you can jot anything down for us, and then I'll ask Anna what's coming through. What I can do is in a moment I can share with you the global population from the 60,000 people that have done this process, what some of the most popular ones are. So I'll be able to share that with you in a moment. I'm just really interested to see what's coming through for everybody today.
So we've got realised strengths, planner, organiser and time optimiser, with weaknesses, courage, writer, optimism, self-belief. Realised strengths, detail, narrator, authenticity, listener, incubator, competitive and humour. Other realised strengths, compassion, emotional awareness, empathetic, adventure, compassion, adaptable, planner. So some are kind of repeating, or there's quite a diversity obviously within individuals but also across the board. So it just shows how kind of what a rich tapestry we all are, and we all need those strengths to make great teams and kind of bring to the workplace as well. New ones, organised, persistence, work ethic, connector, resilience, listener.
Great. So a real mix coming through. So it's just picking on a few there. I mean, somebody mentioned authenticity. That was a strength, I think, wasn't it, Anna? I think that was somebody's. You know,
It was a strength, yeah.
You know, we see, yeah, brilliant. I mean, I see a number of graduates who come back and work with us, and maybe 1 or 2 years on, and just say, I can't do this job anymore. And sometimes it's about the role that they do has to be in line with what's important to them, what they value, and that sense of authenticity. So if that is you, I would say just bear that in mind and think about, am I doing something that really is in line with what I believe, who I am and what I'm about. I think the other one is mission, I think, on here. And again, doing things that give you that sense of meaning and purpose. So again, finding things that you love, and maybe can I work around that? Can I have a role doing something that contributes to the things I feel are really important? For other people, it's not a big thing, and it's not wrong to have that in your life or not have it in your life. So if somebody, I think somebody mentioned they're competitive, you know, that drive, that wanting to be the best that you can be, and so, you know, that gives you options. Then you can do whatever, you know, some of the graduate programs, which is very much about, you know, being driven and challenged, you know, go for anything, because you'll feel quite energized by that sense of competing and doing well. Anything else for you?
Yeah, bounce back is a kind of a recurring one, and I'm wondering if that's relating to people's response to the lockdown or whether generally, but obviously bounce back and resilience are sort of occurring quite a few times in the chat.
Right, and where are they occurring, Anna? Are they in strengths or?
Mixed, actually. Some people are saying the strengths, other people are pointing them out as weakness. So I guess, you know, one man's meat is another man's poison to that extent. As I say, we're all flip sides of the same, aren't we, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing to bear in mind with this, I'm just going to go back to here, with things in your weakness box. People, there is the view of trying to avoid, you know, having your sort of non-strengths in your life. But there's something to think about with weaknesses, is that for some things, you have to have them in there. It's the nature of the world of work, or it's a demand on you. The other thing to bear in mind is that you might not really have developed that yet. And it might be something that you haven't really developed the skill of it, so you don't really know. And often people say, I can't do that. It's not something I'm good at. But they haven't really sort of tried or got involved in that at all. So for some things, it's a training need. And for some things, yet you've really had a go and it's not working out. But just check in with yourself and say, is this something I have really fully explored? Because sometimes we put some stuff in the weakness box. And there's still time. There's a lot of time for that. And I think with things like being competitive and that sense of leadership and challenge. So just a reflection point there on that one. So
can I just add another one, Amanda? Someone's made a comment that their two realised strengths actually seem to compete with each other. So maybe that's also another angle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose they could, it could feel like that. It could, and I suppose it's just unpicking and looking. Now you have this knowledge, as you are behaving, you can observe what's happening to you and how you're feeling when you're using different things, and you maybe try this out and notice when you're in situations, notice yourself, notice you responding. So there isn't going to be an exact science. There isn't going to be that you put your strengths all into a box and someone tells you what to do. But it's like a checklist, and it's like an awareness that you can tally things against. But I think it also frees you up. You know, it frees you up to not have to decide on a set route to go down. It's just really a kind of checking point. You could choose something, have a go, learn more about who you are and your strengths, and then steer off in another direction. The view is, I think this data is probably about 3 or 4 years old, but I love it because it says something like, you know, at least 50% of grads will change their job within the first 3 years or something like that. But it actually, don't quote me on that at all, but it's actually a really nice reassurance that you don't have to set down in one specific direction. There is no right answer, but there is a fit, and there's lots of fits for you, but at least you knowing what's important to you, it can help you adapt that. So shall we have a look at some of the countries, well, it's the global picture, the most popular strengths. What I'll ask you to do, pop in your chat box, I'll pop this back up, and in the chat box I want you to tell me what you think the most popular realised strength is, so do an RS, and the most popular or common weakness. Got some comments coming through, I think. Okay, Anna, anything coming through? And then I will share with you what I know.
So realised strengths, innovation occurs a couple of times, creativity, other ones, we're looking at weaknesses now. Weaknesses, people are saying self-belief. Self-belief occurs a few times. Authenticity, so that kind of self-doubt, I suppose, is what's coming out as being a weakness in people and not having that confidence. Competitive is a realised strength, so the kind of more achieving type ones, whereas as I said, it's almost this kind of lack of confidence that people seem to think would be a weakness for most people.
Okay. Interesting about innovation and creativity. I was introduced to this model about 4 years ago, but I'm only really noticing now the things that are energizing me. So for me, I thought back about, well, what have I really enjoyed in my job? I've got about 4 or 5 different kind of job projects going on at the moment. And the ones I find really motivating and I get the most out of is this, where I can be creative and I can have new ideas and try out new things. And the other thing I've noticed is I'm a real incubator, in that anytime anything comes up, I have to just go into my own head and really think about it from lots of angles and then come up with this optimum solution. And if I can't incubate my thoughts, I get very distressed. It's like, you can't ask me now, it's too soon, I've not thought about it. So some of these strengths, you might start to uncover them a little bit later on. and make some more sort of sense of them when you see them in action with your own behaviours. But let's have a look. So this is the popular strengths and popular strengths in all of the quadrants. So let's see what people thought. Realised strengths. This is kind of like there's a lot of strengths profiles being done in the UK. This concept of pride and humility. We're very good at going, oh no, it wasn't me. No, it was you. And not taking the credit for that. So, and finding that quite energizing is to give other people sort of credit and deflect from yourself. I think it's interesting. But a lot of people kind of resolving, improving the relationship aspects. So unrealized strengths, this is the things that people aren't building in, or they haven't realized that putting more of this into their lives. So this concept of legacy and mission, doing something that you can leave behind, something that would mark out what you've achieved, that's in line with what you believe in. Being innovative, creative, and again, I think that frees you up. You can be innovative and creative with lots of different things, but that would potentially be something that would be quite energizing for you. Time optimizer, curiosity. So interestingly, I think, as a group, you've done really well under weaknesses. So spotting things like competitive and self-belief. What happens with self-belief is if it is a weakness for you, it can sort of bring a lot of strengths down, because we have kind of a quite limited view of what we're capable of and what we're good at. So with somebody who does have self-belief in weakness, they can often find they're allocating more of their 60 strengths into things like weaknesses or learned behaviors, because they're thinking, actually, I'm not so strong at many things. So be mindful, if you have got self-belief as a weakness, just be mindful of what it's doing to your view of your strengths and how good you are. But you aren't alone. A lot of people, again, it's that sense with a little bit with pride about not taking credit for who we are and what we can do, what we can achieve. I think adherence, I think that's one for me, a learned behavior. I don't like following all the rules. I don't like following all the processes, but you've learned that if you don't, you get into trouble, So adherence under learned behaviors. And work ethic, we're paid to work because really we'd like to do other stuff. So, actually working super hard all the time is something, you've got to do. You've become good at it, but yeah, you might actually be more energized doing something else. So that's an interesting view of the popular ones from all the strengths profiles that have been done. So I hope you might recognize a little bit of you in there. Interestingly, during lockdown, while people have all had kind of their lives turned upside down, the strengths that have gone up, that more people have been drawing on, are things like gratitude, so being grateful, I'm okay, this is okay. Doing more sort of incubating, thinking things through, and become more self-aware, and going through periods of growth. How can I develop myself? How can I make myself better? Things that have gone down during lockdown are things like action, drive, resolving situations, because you're a little bit powerless, you can't do anything, you're kind of stuck at home. So it's interesting to see how a change in situation can actually change people's strengths. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to wrap up with the last couple of slides and just talk you through, what can you do with this? Is this any use to you? So I suppose the main message is, we'll send you the 60. If for any reason you don't get it, there's an email on the next slide. You can always email that and just say, for attention of Amanda, send me the 60 strengths. But I think pretty sure that through this registration process, we can send you something. But use those 60 then to think about, well, what's important for you? What's the steer for you? What sort of things should be in there? And then you can use it to evaluate your options. But the other thing you can do is also think about the journey now, the how do I decide, rather than what I decide to do. How do I decide what I'm going to do? And you can make a more productive journey by thinking about the things that are energizing for you. So if you are, for example, a connector, you love connecting with people, don't think about your career on your laptop, mulling through lots of websites. Just get in touch with people. Talk to people, connect with people on LinkedIn, find someone doing your job you think you might want to know more about, and talk to them. because it's likely to be a more energizing process and you're likely wanting to get involved with it a little bit more. Similarly, if you're a writer, if writing is one of your strengths, focus on crafting a really good LinkedIn profile and how you're going to market yourself effectively. But do put some energizing time into those sorts of things that you find energizing. If you're more of a planner, set yourself a list of tasks that you think you need to do in this process and go through that. So it's also about making the journey as energizing as you can and not just actually thinking about energy when it comes to the end result. So with more reasons to think about strengths, all I want to say here was just to touch on that concept of strengths-based recruiting that employers are using as well. And employers that are using strengths-based recruiting, they've seen this 60, they see it as a language. They've also made sense of what they think are the energizing behaviors that they feel it's important in their organization. And they'll usually give you some idea of what they are in their recruitment material. But the nice thing about this strengths model is you can then use that language to talk about who you are and how you behave. So if you were wanting to say, I'm a really good communicator in an example or in an interview, you've actually got a language now within which to talk about communication and what that involves. So, you know, I could build strong rapport with people. It might be about listening. It might be about reframing and adapting the language I use. But so you can use things in that 60 to help unpick what that looks like. So the strengths profile link is on here. If you did want to pay money, you can do the strengths profile and you can probably get, there's a little bit of a career profile in there which suggests some career areas, but we're not advocating you need to pay for anything. You can play around with this yourself, but it's just an option if you wanted to go a little bit further. Here are our contact details. So Anna and I will stay on the chat now if anyone's got any questions, and then you're all welcome to stay and we'll talk through, we'll take the slides off and we'll talk through the answers to some of your questions. But if you go away and you want to reflect on this over time and then want to get in touch with us, that's the University Careers Service email address, careers@manchester.ac.uk. I'd recommend putting it for the attention of Amanda, just so it doesn't get lost. There's a good 50 of us within the Careers Service doing various different things. And that's the Careers Service link to what's happening at the moment, any new things we're hearing about, any updates. So that's quite a nice part of the site. So if you're not sure about what your strengths are after today, I'd say take some time and have a look through. But the other thing is to ask friends, ask family, ask people you work with. Tell them what you think your strengths look like, and they'll have a very clear view about what your strengths are as well. So get feedback from other people. We're very bad at taking credit for the things we're good at, but our people that we know and who work with us, they'll know it and they'll be able to give you that feedback too. So if you've got any questions now, please feel free to ask them in the chat and we'll answer them. And I will, I think, attempt to stop sharing my screen. I mean, if I leave that on just for a second in case anyone wants to jot that down. I'll just check I've covered everything. Want to cover? Yeah. Okay, so we'll stop sharing. And I will ask Anna, do you think we've got any questions coming through?
Yeah, we have got a couple coming through. First one, when are psychology careers appointments available until?
So for anybody, because we've got people doing lots of different subjects on here, as a member of the university, when you're graduating now, you can still use the careers service for up to 2 years. So if you're a psychologist, the psychology careers appointments, you can use this for up to 2 years. We run all the way through the summer. So for all of you, you can still use your careers service. You can have 30-minute appointments. There's also on the careers service site, there's a chat feature as well on there. So if you, I think it's office hours, Anna's probably going to nod at me. I think it's pretty much office hours. There's a chat feature on the careers service website. You can ask any questions through that as well, and we'll set something up for you.
Next question is, what is the name of the 60 Strength Programme again? So just a reminder of the kind of...
Yes, so if you go to the website strengthsprofile.com, you can see the whole sort of strengths movement in there. So strengthsprofile.com is the link, and it's an organisation called Capfinity. They were called CAP, C-A-P-P, and now they're called Capfinity. I think they've merged with somebody with Finity in their name, so that's what they're called now. So you can Google that, or just go to strengthsprofile.com.
That's the only questions we've got at the moment. Does anybody else have any questions they want to sort of ask in front of everybody? If not, as Amanda said, we can stay on and you can message us directly and we can do some Q&A. But feel free to leave the session, I guess, now if you're done. Thank you for coming. It's been great having everybody with us this morning.
Yeah, so thanks very much, guys. Take care. And yeah, Anna and I will hang around for a few moments. Thank you. Some chat ones coming through, Anna, I think maybe.
Yeah. New question: are there direct future job ideas that link to the 60 strengths?
There is on the strengthsprofile.com. They have got, if you did the questionnaire, they have got a careers kind of question element of that as well, and they will suggest some careers on it. And I suppose it can vary, but I suppose a suggestion would be put your sense of your profile together, book in with one of the careers team and talk through that, and we can unpick that with you, because you'll have quite a unique combination. And that's, a lot of us are all trained in the strengths model, so that's probably a tip, to then book in and chat through that with one of us.
The next question is around how you integrate the ideas around the 60 strengths into a job application. And I think you might have touched on this, Amanda, anyway, but from my point of view, what it gives you is a set of vocabulary and a way to articulate things differently to how everyone else may do, and more kind of specifically. So rather than just saying I'm a great team worker, look at the 60 strengths and pull out the things that make a good team leader, but articulate that using that framework, because actually it's a lot more detailed and a lot more personal to you than just recounting I'm actually a good team leader. I don't know if you agree with that, Amanda, that it's that lexicon that it gives you that's really useful.
Completely, absolutely. I remember doing a strengths exercise with a student who went on and applied to the NHS graduate programme, and she said she talked about her strengths as either when they talked about herself, you know, like you talk about, you know, I've studied whatever biological sciences, but, you know, it might say, you know, I'm somebody that's really interested in whether it's connecting with other people. You know, for me, some of my particular strengths are, but more than that is when you talk about giving an example of those very generic terms like teamwork, communication skills, like Anna mentioned, leadership. How do you do those things? Always people want to do the how bit, and this can be the how. So how you actually make it happen. You know, I was very strategic, I was very planned, you know, I made sure I connected with other people and talked things through. So they're all almost like good behaviors, and you can talk about the ones that particularly resonate with you. One thing to bear in mind is that there will be employers, in theory, any strengths can fit well within an organisation, but some will have quite a clear idea of the ones they want to see. So now you know what the vocabulary is. When you look in their adverts, you can start to unpick which ones of these that they're looking for, and to match with some of those as well.
Yeah, and also thinking along those lines that if you do see that kind of terminology and it doesn't match your strengths, then maybe look for one that does. So you now know what you're trying to, how you're trying to unpick all that kind of recruitment speak that's sometimes really difficult to drill down exactly what that role entails or what the culture of that organisation is. But now you've got that reference point, you can start to understand a little bit better whether that fits with what will energise you ultimately in a role. And I was also going to add on about covering letters, that we often get students who don't know how to use a covering letter effectively and just repeat what's in the application or repeat what's in the CV. But here now you've got some way of trying to present your profile within that, in terms of referring to those skills and also the descriptors underneath, to try and sort of develop your own little profile about what makes you you, almost.
Yeah, and there might also be some words that the employer uses and you know that they're not your strengths. They're actually things you find quite draining. And so there might be some watchwords to observe, just to really ask yourself, would this fit for me? And so it can be words that maybe can steer you away from a vacancy as well. But I think both Anna and I would encourage you, be quite open with this, and that actually you don't need to be drilling down to a particular job description or a job that you're going to do for life. Just look at opportunities and think, well, do they fit? And try something new, because you'll develop more and you'll learn more about yourself as well. You're not tied to a very specific decision just yet. Any last questions there, Anna, or are we okay?
No, I think that's it. We've had a lot of thank yous. Well, thank you to everybody else for being so participative and joining in. I hope it's been useful. I've certainly found it useful for myself. And as I say, it's great to have a really practical way of increasing energy levels during this time, which is easy to kind of let them get low. So that's been really, really useful, Amanda. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that unrealised strengths bit, go back to your unrealised strengths list and think, if I built some of these into my day, what I'm doing, even if it's just your hobbies, then you can find everything a lot more energising as well. So it's always trying to stay above the line and not below the line as well. So we have run over. I'm not going to apologise for that. But yeah, I think we just completely got our timings wrong there. But it's really nice to see you all, and please stay connected with us. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you.
Bye.